All right, welcome back to Donnan's Tips and Tricks. Today we are going to go over static mesh LODs. LOD actually stands for levels of detail. And what that is a way to save computing power when you're working with an interactive application. Okay, so let's go ahead and look through some of this real quick. So if you look at this, these three images look relatively similar. Like it kind of looks like the same box here, here, and here. But if you put them all right next to each other, close to the camera, you realize they are not. They are drastically different. So the far box is way lower detail than the box that's the closest to us. And then in the middle here, we've got one that's sort of in between. So if you look closely, the differences are rounded corners here versus sharp corners, as well as texture resolution. So this is 1024 by 1024 texture. This is a 256 by 256 texture. And this is a 64 by 64 texture. So now if you look at the memory usage footprint, it is drastic. The 1024 res image is this large. Like comparatively speaking, you could fit tons and tons of images. Or actually, this should probably be, I think this should be 64. So I must have made a mistake. Either way, you can see the difference in the size in kilobytes. Okay, so the large one, that's how much memory it would take up comparatively. So you can see this is very, very cheap resource-wise compared to this. And that is the whole concept behind levels of detail. So we are going to talk about how we're going to implement levels of detail for our static meshes that we create in 3D Studio Max and then import into Unreal Engine 4. Now, before we start, you should have a general understanding of how to model in 3D Studio Max 2014. And if you don't, I've got a whole bunch of videos that span weeks of work, and you can get up to speed on that quickly, moderately. And then the next thing you should also be comfortable with is UVW modifiers and exporting UVs. And then finally, exporting FBX files for Unreal 4 from 3D Studio Max is also very important. And then basic Photoshop skills will help, because I'll be talking a little bit about how I used Photoshop to make sure that each one of these images was exported at a different resolution. And then we'll talk about LOD settings in Unreal 4. All right, so let's get started. So this is, here we are in 3D Studio Max 2014, and these are our three different assets. So our first asset here is 236 tries. Our next asset is 156 tries, and our third, our LOD2, so this is LOD0, LOD1, LOD2. This is only 12 triangles. Compare that to the 236 for the big one. Now you can tell that because it's so much less geometry, it's going to render a lot faster. The computer won't have to think about all these extra edges that this one has when it renders that. And when you're looking at it in the distance, you can't really tell the difference. Like if you put these small enough, they look identical, like three little crates. You only notice when you get up close that they are significantly different. Now once again, the closer you get, the more you notice the difference between the two. That one's obviously more blurry than this one. Okay? Great. So, in order to excuse me, in order to get this functional, what you need to do is make sure that all their pivot points are in the exact same spot. The way Epic works with Unreal Engine 4 is their pivot points will always be relative, not to where their pivot point is individually, but where their pivot point, where the 000 is in the world. So if I export this out, its pivot point is going to be here. If I export this out, its pivot point is going to be here, still at 000, which means it will rotate all the way around here. This is the only one that's actually in the right position. So if I hit W, you can see that my widget here shows that I'm at X0, Y0, Z0. Now I've already made sure that my each one of these assets pivot point is placed perfectly in the corner. You could place it in the center if you wanted. It's up to you. Epic usually places theirs for things of this nature in the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and use their system for today. So now I'm going to overlap all of these in the same spot, so all of their pivots will be in the same spot, which is pretty easy. Right now my X is 250, my Y is 0, and my Z is 0. Here I've got 0, 0, 0. So all I need to do is select this one and right-click the spinner, and it jumps to where it should be. Now you'll notice it's overlapping and it's starting to look a little weird because two different objects are right on top of each other. So you're going to find that they are Z fighting. When I move this one over by clicking this, you'll see now it's even more flashy. See how it flashes? That's from the two planes being perfectly aligned with each other. The computer is trying to figure out which one it wants to show us at any given time. Alright, now that they are placed together, actually before we do that, I do want to talk to you a little bit about each one's UV. I want to select this object in the Modify panel and look at it. Under Unwrap UVW, I'm going to open up the UV editor. You'll notice that I had to move in these faces a little bit. Okay? These are the actual interior portions. This section here is the exterior brackets, and these are the interior braces. Excuse me. Okay, so we've got that set up. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. Open up the Modifier tab, Unwrap UV. So, same process. I had these positioned where they are. Got that set up there. Now this image is 256 by 256, which is a quarter of the size of this image, the 1024 by 1024. You'll also notice there's no edged corners here that are rounded. So that information is not there. All right, now we'll go to the final one. Now the final one I had to actually do a little work on because I actually had to make sure that each square lined up perfectly. And you'll notice when I created the art, I made a mistake. And that happens, of course. You'll notice this is almost rectangular versus these four are basically square, but these two are a little messed up. And because of that, I had to go and actually edit this and move it around a little bit. Now, all I did basically is I brought the material into Photoshop and I laid all three of the UVs out. So if you look at this, you can see the LOD 0, which is my high definition, has these little triforces on the corners, right? LOD 1 doesn't have the triforces, and then excuse me, and then LOD 2 has just the blank squares. Now obviously I'm going to get rid of that. Now to export this out, all I did is I went to File, Save for Web, and then here I can actually adjust the image size on the fly. So the first one was 1024, the next one was 256, and the final one was 64 pixels. So the final one was very, very small. But it works. It's good enough for the distance that we were looking at the file at. So that's how you will use this. And then I actually just used not a mask layer, but I turned the opacity down on this. If we were to look at this, it's just sort of a grayed out version to make it look a little cooler. So it was super quick. Got that done quickly. There. Great. So now, where were we? We were moving them all on top of each other. So we're going to hit W, zero that out, zero this out. So now they're all positioned together at 0, 0, 0 with their pivot points to the exact same place. Now here's where we actually get into the exporting portion. First thing we need to do is create a group. We create a group by highlighting all of our objects together. So I'm just going to marquee select all of them. You'll notice I hit 3 of them. I go to Group and click the Group button. And I'm going to call this SM for Static Mesh Crate, C-R-A-T-E. You don't really need to. I mean, it's not a big deal. So that's our SM Crate. And we are going to export. First thing, actually, this is a group, but we need to go to this little hammer and create a new LOD group, all right, which is not here immediately. But if you go to More and you look down here, you will find level of detail right about in the middle. Click OK. And now there's no set. We need to create a new set of LOD, level of detail set. So create new set. And now it's automatically going to determine which one's the largest, the middle, and the lower. And it puts them in order. And once that's done, we can actually close this. And we have set this, and it's ready to go. So now this group is considered a LOD group, and we can export it. So we have the group selected. You notice it's a group because it's highlighted or bolded up here. So I can go to File up here, Export, and I'm going to just put it on my desktop for now. So I'm going to save it as a FBX, okay, and then I'm going to call this SM_crate. Hit save. Now, when it comes to what options you need to set up, you can go to the website, unrealengine.com, and you will find creating and using LODs, and it will give you all the information that I'm covering today. Okay, there's actually more in the static mesh setup or something like that. It's like static mesh pipeline, FBX pipeline, but it's the same process. Now, you'll notice that under geometry, you need smoothing groups, tangents and binormals, and triangulate. Preserve edge orientation is nice, and it will keep you from getting some errors. They don't say that you need it, although on their website in one place it says you do need it, and in another place it says you don't. I like to leave it on. It keeps me from getting certain errors. Now, animation you may not think you need, but for LODs to work, you have to have animation exported, because for some reason, the way it's set up, you need animation. That's how it knows about the LOD groupings. I don't know if you need the baking or not. I went ahead and included it just to be safe. And of course, everything, I do all my work in centimeters. I suggest you do it too. My entire world is set up. My user interface is set up in centimeters. And then Z up is for axis, and then finally FBX 2014 is crucial. Without that, you can get problems. So click OK, and that exports. All right, so now what we do is we jump into Unreal. So this is Unreal 4.8. So we are going to find our FBX file, which should be smcrate. smcrate FBX, there it is. Come on. Okay. All I'm going to do is take that and drag it over. Drag it into here and let go. Now, it's going to notice that it's not a skeletal mesh because there's no skeleton. It's going to auto-generate collision. That's fine. We could do that. We could have imported our own collision, but we don't need to. I'm going to go ahead and import the textures, and then I think that's all we need to do. So just click Import. It'll think for a second. I'll maximize this, and now you'll see I've got smcrate. I can take this and drag it in like that. All right, so if I play, if I just hit play, all right, there's my crate. Now you'll notice it came in and it's flashing. It's got all that craziness to it. Okay, so at some point, where is it? Let's try it again. I'm going to force delete that and bring it in again. smcrate. There it is. Sorry. So under mesh, I forgot to select import mesh LODs. Okay? If we import that, now we'll get the one object. There we go. That's much better. So I can bring this in and drop it. And then I can play from here. Now when I get up real close, you can see it's nice and curved. As I back off, it changes to the LOD1. And if I back off further, it gets to LOD3 now, or 2. Now obviously that change is drastic. And we need to make it less drastic. So we can actually go into SM Crate, double click on that, and we can bring it up here. And you can actually see here under LODs how we're going to adjust that. Okay, so the LOD grouping in themselves, you can actually determine how it's going to be set up. So right now, if we have it automatically generate the LOD, it automatically does it at that at its own level. We can still adjust it, but it's harder. So what you really want to do is, instead of bringing it in like that, you want to, when you import it, you can actually set it you can actually tell it to not determine that. You can actually see level architecture, like different type of LOD groups. So large props, small props, deco, vista, foliage. There we go. So let's go ahead and grab that import. Now our LOD settings, the LOD settings that I felt were comfortable were LOD0 was 0.02, LOD1 was 0.0099, and LOD2 was 0.003. That's the ones I decided upon after I had messed with it for a while. And you can have it so it doesn't automatically determine that for you. Here where it says auto compute LOD distance, deselect that, apply changes. Now you can actually go into each individual LOD and determine what the distance is you want it. So like I said before, I want to pull up my cheat sheet. So I said 0.02, which automatically bumps this one down to 199, which I think is what, or 0.099. 0.099, and LOD is 003. 03. Okay, now you can actually see distance-wise. Up here, it actually tells you the current screen size. So there it pops. I was looking for something that you would never be able to tell when it pops. You can make it so that it looks better up close for a longer period of time, but you will I'll save that, close this, drag my crate in, and now if I play from here, you'll see as I get farther and further away, it still looks the same. There, it popped. It's hard to see, but it did. All right, and that's how you import LODs. Yep, there it went again. High detail, medium. I don't know if it'll ever go to low because I don't know if I can get far enough away. But that's the idea. That's how you import LODs. Now, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I hope I covered everything, and I hope you sort of got the understanding of how it works. You can also see that each material was created because I included materials when I exported the FBX. So that's all down here. And I guess that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.